The sky burned orange as the Zarkonian ships entered Earth's atmosphere. They moved like massive silver fish, graceful despite their size. People stood in streets, on rooftops, and in fields, watching with fear and wonder. News channels across the world showed the same images. The aliens had arrived. Staff Sergeant Alan Reynolds watched from the underground bunker in Nevada. The room was cold and filled with the low hum of computers and worried voices. Large screens on the wall showed the alien ships hovering above major cities: New York, London, Beijing, Moscow. The pattern was clear. They targeted centers of power. How long have they been in orbit? Alan asked, his voice steady despite the tension in his shoulders. Colonel Susan Wright looked up from her tablet. Her gray hair was pulled back tight, her face showing the strain of 3 days without proper sleep. 6 months. Watching, learning. Alan nodded. The aliens had been careful. They didn't rush. They studied Earth before making themselves known. That worried him more than a direct attack would have. And what do we know about them? He asked. Not enough, Susan replied. She tapped her screen and the wall display changed to show close-up images of the aliens. They call themselves the Zarkonian Imperium. They've conquered 17 star systems before finding us. Their technology is... She paused, searching for the right word. Beyond us. The images showed tall, thin beings with translucent skin, through which complex organs could be seen pulsing. They had forearms and moved with careful precision. Their eyes were large, compound structures that seemed to take in everything at once. A new voice joined the conversation. They think we're primitive. Alan turned to see General Patricia Wilson enter the room. Everyone stood a little straighter. Wilson had that effect on people. She walked with purpose toward the central table, her uniform crisp despite the crisis. At ease, she said, though no one relaxed. The Zarkonians have sent a message. They offer protection in exchange for our resources. Protection from what? Alan asked. From themselves, I'd guess. Wilson answered with a grim smile. The usual colonizer's trick. Create a threat, then offer to save people from it. Susan pulled up new information on the screen. Their weapons are energy-based. They've demonstrated their power by neutralizing every military satellite we had in orbit. Did it in under 5 minutes. Alan whistled low. And our response? The Security Council is meeting now, Wilson said. But they've already disabled our nuclear arsenals. Our air forces can't get near their ships. They have some kind of shield technology. A young lieutenant rushed into the room. General, they've taken someone. An ambassador is being brought here. Wilson's eyes narrowed. Brought by whom? By them, ma'am. They teleported past our security. The room erupted in controlled chaos. Guards took positions at the doors. Weapons were checked. Alan put his hand on his sidearm but knew it would be useless if the aliens could simply appear inside their most secure facility. A shimmer of light formed in the center of the room. The air seemed to fold, and then unfold again. When the light faded, a Zarkonian stood before them. It was taller than any human, nearly 8 feet, its body swaying slightly like a reed in water. Beside the alien was a containment field, a transparent bubble of energy. Inside floated another Zarkonian, smaller, with blue tints to its skin. This is Zendar, the tall alien announced in perfect English. He has studied your species. He will help you understand your place. With that, the tall alien disappeared in another fold of light. The containment field remained, hovering a few inches above the floor. Guards aimed their weapons at Zendar, who showed no fear. His skin rippled with patterns that might have been amusement. Your projectile weapons cannot penetrate this field, he said. His voice had a musical quality, like several tones speaking at once. Please let us talk like civilized beings. Wilson stepped forward. You invaded our planet. That's not very civilized. Zendar's skin changed color slightly, shifting to a deeper blue. We did not invade. We arrived. There is a difference. Had we wished to invade, you would already be extinct. What do you want? Alan asked, moving to stand beside Wilson. The alien turned to him. compound eyes reflecting Alan's image back at him multiple times. Want? We want what all living things want. To grow, to expand. Your planet has resources we need. And if we don't want to share? Alan pressed. Sendar made a sound that might have been laughter. Your species lacks the genetic predisposition for conquest. Our scientists have analyzed you extensively. You are gatherers, not hunters. It is why you will serve us well. The room fell silent. The alien had just told them they were natural slaves. Alan felt anger rise in his chest but kept his face calm. You've studied our biology, he said finally, his voice low. But have you studied our history? Zendar tilted his head, a curiously human gesture. Your recorded history is brief, a mere few thousand years. The Zarkonian Imperium has existed for millions. Alan laughed, a sound that made the alien flinch visibly. Quality over quantity, he said. Wilson gave him a warning look, but Alan continued. You think we're weak because we're not as advanced as you. That's your first mistake. Your weapons cannot harm us, Zendar stated. Your defenses cannot stop us. These are facts, not opinions. Alan stepped closer to the containment field. He could feel the energy from it making the hair on his arms stand up. Let me tell you another fact. Humans have been killing each other since we first picked up rocks. We've gotten really, really good at it. Zendar's skin rippled again, but this time Alan thought he saw uncertainty. Violence within a species is illogical. Maybe, Alan agreed, but it made us who we are. And it means we're not afraid to die, as long as we take you with us. Outside, through the small reinforced windows near the ceiling of the bunker, they could see the orange sky darkening as more Zarkonian ships arrived. The real test of humanity was about to begin. 3 weeks passed since the Zarkonian ships arrived. 3 weeks of tense waiting. The aliens didn't attack, not directly. Instead, they cut power to major cities for hours at a time. They disrupted water systems. They showed humans just how easily they could make life difficult. World leaders agreed to meet with the aliens in Geneva. What remained of the United Nations building stood as a reminder of the warning shots the Zarkonians had fired when Earth first refused their offer. The East Wing was now rubble, a precise demonstration of alien weapons. Alan Reynolds found himself promoted after his commanding officers died in the London incident. Now a captain, he walked beside Captain Samantha Kelly toward the meeting room. Samantha was tall with short brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been chosen to represent North American military interests. You ready for this? She asked Alan. No, he answered honestly. But I don't think they're ready for us either. The room was large with a round table in the center. Windows looked out over Lake Geneva, where an alien ship hovered above the water. Human leaders from various nations sat on one side of the table. The empty chairs on the other side waited for the Zarkonians. The air in the center of the room folded, the now familiar sign of Zarkonian teleportation. 3 aliens appeared. The tallest wore complex armor that shifted colors like oil on water. This was Supreme General Zultar, leader of the Zarkonian forces. Behind him stood 2 guards, with weapons attached to their lower arms. Sendar, the captured ambassador, was brought in by human guards. His containment field had been modified to allow him movement within a 10-foot radius. He would serve as translator. Humans, Zultar began, his words translated by Zendar. You have had time to consider our offer. Your planet has resources we require. You will extract them for us. In return, we will allow your civilization to continue under our protection. The president of the United European Alliance, a stern woman named Nora Larson, spoke first. And if we refuse? Zultar's skin rippled with dark patterns. Refusal is not logical. Your resistance is futile. We have disabled your most powerful weapons without causing casualties. We can continue to demonstrate our power until you submit. Alan watched the alien carefully. The Zarkonians spoke about logic and efficiency, but he saw something else in their movements. Pride, arrogance. They truly believed humans were no threat to them. Samantha slid a tablet across the table. Before we discussed terms, we thought, you might want to learn something about the species you're trying to conquer. Zultar stared at the tablet but made no move to take it. One of his guards picked it up instead. Play the files in sequence, Alan suggested. The guard touched the screen. The room's main display came to life with historical footage. The muddy trenches of World War I. Soldiers charging across open fields into machine gun fire. Bodies piled in mud and barbed wire. The footage changed. World War II bombing runs over cities. The view from planes as buildings crumbled beneath them. The aftermath of nuclear weapons in Japan. More images followed. Vietnam napalm strikes, desert warfare, urban combat in ruined cities, chemical weapons, victims. Each clip showed humans fighting humans with increasing efficiency and horror. The room fell silent except for the sounds from the videos. Alan watched as Zultar's compound eyes widened. The alien's skin had turned a pale shade of green. What is this? Zultar finally asked, his multiple tones now a single flat sound. This is what we do to each other, Alan said quietly. This is our history, Zendar translated rapidly, his skin changing from blue to pale white as the implications sank in. You destroy your own kind with such weapons? Zultar seemed genuinely shocked. We do, President Larson confirmed, and we've spent centuries trying to limit our capacity for destruction, creating rules, lines we try not to cross. Alan stepped forward. But we cross those lines anyway, every time we decide the threat is great enough. Zultar turned to Zendar. You said they were gatherers, not predators. Zendar's voice trembled as he replied. Our biological analysis showed them to be physically weak. No natural weapons, no significant speed or strength compared to other Earth predators. You missed something important, Samantha said, tapping her own head. Our natural weapon is up here. We don't just kill for food or territory. We kill for ideas, for the future, sometimes just because we can. Alan moved beside her. Imagine what we're willing to do to you. The Zarkonian guards raised their weapons, but Zultar waved them down with one of his forearms. You show us this to threaten us? He asked. We can destroy your cities from orbit. You have no defense against our technology. We're not threatening you, Alan said. We're educating you. There's a difference. President Larson nodded. We want peace, cooperation even, but not submission. Your weapons cannot harm our ships, Zultar insisted. But Alan noticed the alien's confidence seemed shaken. Not yet, Samantha agreed, but we're very good at adapting, especially when our survival is at stake. Alan pointed to the screen, where footage of guerrilla warfare now played. You see those fighters? They're using homemade explosives against tanks and aircraft. They're outmatched in every way. But they keep fighting. For years, Samantha added. Decades sometimes. Zultar was silent for a long moment. I will consider this information. We will meet again tomorrow. The aliens disappeared in their teleportation light, leaving Zendar behind. The human ambassador from Japan, an older man named Dr. Kenji Yamamoto, sighed heavily. Was it wise to show them our capacity for violence? They may decide to eliminate us entirely. They needed to understand what they're dealing with, Alan replied. They think because their technology is better, victory is certain. Samantha nodded. They evolved differently than us. Their society values cooperation and efficiency. They expanded through their star systems with minimal conflict. How do you know that? President Larson asked. Zendar told me, Alan said, looking at the alien who stood silently in his containment field. Their species never had a world war, never developed weapons meant primarily to kill their own kind. They're about to learn that humans don't surrender easily, Samantha said, and they may not like the lesson. Outside, the Zarkonian ship above Lake Geneva was moving higher into the atmosphere, rejoining the larger fleet. Alan watched it go, wondering if they had just started a real war, or prevented one. Either way, the aliens now knew that humans were far more dangerous than they had believed. The real question was, What would they do with that knowledge? The Zarkonians retreated to their ships after the meeting. For 3 days, they stayed in orbit silent. On Earth, people watched the skies and waited. In underground bunkers and secret facilities, military leaders made plans. Alan sat in a small room with Samantha and 4 other soldiers. The room was deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, far from the main command center. Only a few people knew they were there. "They're analyzing everything we showed them," Alan said, "trying to understand what kind of threat we really are." Samantha nodded. "Their species evolved through cooperation. War for them is about resources and territory, clean, efficient." "Not like us," said Kevin Martinez, a demolitions expert with steady hands and a quick smile. He was checking equipment spread out on the table. Timers, wires, detonators. "Definitely not like us," agreed Lisa Woodward, their communications specialist. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her face serious as she worked on a modified tablet. "Humans fight for ideas. For revenge. Sometimes just because we're angry." The other 2 team members, Jordan Peters and Doug Bailey, were securing weapons and supplies. They were all part of a special operations unit, chosen for this mission because of their skills and their understanding of what was at stake. "The aliens think they've won," Alan explained, looking at each person in turn. "They disabled our satellites, our nuclear weapons, our air defenses. They think we're helpless." Samantha tapped the table. "That's our advantage. They don't understand that humans don't need big guns to be dangerous." The plan was simple but risky. While the world's governments continued talks with the Zarkonians, Alan's team would strike at the aliens' ground base in Arizona. The Zarkonians had established 3 weeks ago as a forward operating post, studying Earth's environment up close. "Remember," Alan said as they loaded their gear, "we're not trying to win a battle. We're sending a message." They traveled in unmarked vehicles, taking back roads and avoiding major highways. The Zarkonians monitored traffic from orbit, but they focused on military movements and large population centers. 6 people in 2 civilian trucks didn't draw attention. 2 days later, they reached the hills overlooking the alien base. It glowed with strange blue-green light in the desert darkness. Alien structures rose like crystal formations from the sand. Zarkonian guards patrolled the perimeter, their translucent skin reflecting moonlight. Their security is focused outward, Samantha noted as she studied the base through binoculars. "They're watching for armies, not small groups." Lisa set up her equipment on a flat rock. "I'm picking up their communications. Their language is complex, but I'm getting patterns." "Can you access their systems?" Alan asked. Lisa worked her tablet. For several minutes, her fingers flying over the screen. "Not directly, but I can create interference. Maybe send false signals." "Good enough," Alan decided. "Kevin, what about the explosives?" Kevin grinned. "Nothing fancy, just ammonium nitrate, diesel fuel, and some household chemicals. But they'll work. Homemade bombs against spaceships," Jordan muttered. "This is crazy." "Sometimes crazy works," Doug replied, checking his rifle one last time. "Especially when the enemy doesn't expect it." They moved when the moon set, using the darkness for cover. The desert was cold at night, their breath visible in the air. They split into 3 groups. Alan and Samantha would place explosives on the western side of the base. Kevin and Jordan would handle the eastern side, and Lisa and Doug would set up the communication system on a ridge overlooking the base. The Maw alien sensors were advanced, but designed to detect energy weapons and large metal objects. The humans carried mostly plastic and composite materials. They moved slowly, carefully, staying low to the ground. Alan and Samantha reached the crystal structures. Up close, they hummed with energy. Alan placed explosive charges at key points, while Samantha kept watch. The aliens moved with eerie grace, their forearms working in perfect coordination as they tended to equipment. "In position," Kevin's voice came through the small earpiece Alan wore. "Charges set." "Ready on the ridge," Lisa confirmed. "Communications ready." Alan placed his final charge and nodded to Samantha. "Let's go." They retreated, meeting up with Kevin and Jordan at the base of the ridge. All of them climbed to where Lisa and Doug waited with the equipment. "Everyone clear?" Alan asked, looking at each team member. They nodded. "Now for the message," Samantha said. Lisa activated her modified tablet, connecting to the aliens' communication system. "Ready when you are." Alan took a deep breath. "Start." The countdown. Kevin pressed a button on his detonator. Numbers flashed red. 10, 9, 8. When the counter reached 0, the night turned bright as day. The explosions ripped through the alien base in sequence just as planned. Crystal structures shattered. Alien equipment burst into flames. The damage wasn't total. Their bombs weren't powerful enough for that. But it was significant. Lisa activated her broadcast system, sending a signal that would reach every Zarkonian ship in orbit. Alan leaned toward the microphone. "This message is for Supreme General Zoltar," he said, his voice steady. "What you just witnessed wasn't our military capability. It was a demonstration by 6 humans with fertilizer, diesel fuel, and household chemicals. We have billions more just like us." They watched from the ridge as aliens rushed to control the fires. Emergency lights flashed, casting strange shadows across the desert. "They're scanning for us," Lisa warned, watching her equipment. "Trying to locate the transmission source." "Time to go," Samantha ordered. They packed quickly, sliding down the back of the ridge to where they had hidden their vehicles. They were 5 miles away when the sky lit up with blinding light. A beam from one of the orbiting ships struck the area where the base had been. The ground shook. A mushroom cloud of dust and debris rose into the night sky. "They glassed it," Kevin said in awe. "They vaporized the entire area." Alan watched through the rear window as the dust cloud rose higher. "Now they're starting to understand." "Understand what?" Jordan asked. "They just showed they can destroy anything they want." "They showed they're afraid," Samantha explained. "They could have captured us, tracked us. Instead, they erased all evidence we were ever there." Alan nodded grimly. "And that's exactly what we expected. Phase 1 complete." Lisa's tablet beeped with incoming data. "They're scanning the whole region, looking for survivors." "They won't find any," Alan said. "We'll be long gone." The team drove through the night, switching vehicles at a prearranged point. By dawn, they were in 3 different states heading to separate safe houses. The news was reporting a meteor strike in the Arizona desert. Governments were issuing statements urging calm. In orbit, the Zarkonian ships moved into new positions, spreading out to cover more of Earth's surface. The aliens were worried now. They had discovered that humans were more dangerous than their technology suggested, but they still didn't truly understand what they were facing. Not yet. 2 months after the Arizona attack, the war had changed. Humans couldn't win direct battles against the Zarkonians. Their weapons were too powerful, their shields too strong. But humans excelled at what military leaders called asymmetric warfare. Small teams struck alien outposts and disappeared. Supply lines were disrupted. Communication systems failed at critical moments. The Zarkonians responded with increasing force. They destroyed entire areas suspected of hiding human fighters. They set up more ground bases, trying to establish control. But for every base they built, humans found ways to attack it. Alan led 3 more successful missions before his luck ran out. His team was planting explosives at a Zarkonian communications relay in what used to be Northern California when alien reinforcements arrived. Unexpectedly, a firefight broke out. 2 of his team members died. 3 escaped. Alan was captured. He woke up in a small circular room. The walls glowed with soft blue light. He was suspended in the center of the room by an invisible force field. His body ached from injuries sustained during the fight, but he could breathe and move his head. A door that hadn't been visible before slid open. Supreme General Zoltar entered, followed by 2 guards and Zendar, the translator. Zoltar had changed since their meeting in Geneva. His skin was darker with patterns that shifted constantly. One of his forearms was now mechanical, a replacement for one lost in an attack. "Captain Alan Reynolds," Zoltar said, his words translated by Zendar. "Leader of the group that destroyed our Arizona base." Alan didn't answer. There was no point denying it. Your tactics make no sense, Zultar continued, moving around Alan's suspended form. You provoke attacks that kill thousands of your own kind. You sacrifice strategic positions. You destroy your own infrastructure before we can capture it. Alan looked up, his face covered in cuts but his eyes clear. Ever heard of the Geneva Conventions? Zendar tilted his head, unable to translate the term properly. They're rules we created for ourselves, Alan explained. To limit the horrors of war. Rules about how to treat prisoners, civilians, wounded enemies. Rules about what weapons we can use and where we can use them. Zendar translated, and a murmur passed through the aliens. And you follow these restrictions? Zultar asked, compound eyes focusing on Alan with new interest. Sometimes, Alan said with a cold smile. And sometimes we decide the enemy is so dangerous that the rules no longer apply. We call those violations war crimes. Your people committed one when you glassed Arizona. The aliens conferred among themselves in their clicking language. Alan watched them carefully. They were genuinely confused by human behavior. That was an advantage he could use. The difference between you and us, Alan continued when they turned back to him, is that you destroy because it's efficient. We destroy because sometimes we're driven by something your species has never felt. Rage. Vengeance. The willingness to burn everything, including ourselves, to make our enemy suffer. Zultar moved closer. You speak of emotions as if they are strengths. Our species evolved beyond such primitive drives. Did you? Alan asked. Then why glass Arizona? Why not capture us? Study us? That would have been the logical choice. The alien leader's skin darkened further. You were a threat. We were 6 humans with homemade bombs, Alan corrected. You were afraid. Fear is an emotion too. One of the guards moved forward aggressively, but Zultar stopped him with a gesture. We have studied your history more deeply since our meeting, Zultar said. Your world wars, your genocides, your constant conflicts. How can you survive as a species with such self-destructive tendencies? Alan laughed, a sound that made the alien step back. That's the question, isn't it? How are we still here? The answer is simple. We adapt. We learn. We get better at survival with every disaster. Zendar spoke directly to Alan for the first time. Your species confuses me. You create rules for warfare, then break them. You build weapons that can destroy your planet, then agree not to use them. You fight over resources, yet sometimes share them freely. We're complicated, Alan admitted. But there's one thing you should understand about humans. We never give up. Not when our survival is at stake. Zultar's mechanical arm made a whirring sound as he flexed it. Your resistance is futile. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your most powerful bombs have been neutralized. You have no spacecraft capable of reaching our fleet. Not yet, Alan agreed. But we're working on it. Every sample of your technology we capture, every piece of wreckage we study, we're learning, adapting. It would take you decades to reach our level, Zendar said. Maybe, Alan acknowledged. Or maybe not. Humans get very creative when we're cornered, and right now, our entire species is cornered. A communication device on Zultar's arm activated, projecting a hologram. Another Zarkonian spoke rapidly. Zultar's skin paled as he listened. He dismissed the hologram and turned back to Alan. Another of your attacks, he said, voice cold. A research facility in what you call Europe. Destroyed. Alan kept his face neutral, but inside he felt a surge of hope. Samantha was continuing the mission. This one was different, Zultar continued. Your people used a biological agent, a bacteria that eats through our ship materials. Now Alan couldn't hide his surprise. That was new. The scientists must have made a breakthrough. Biological warfare, Zendar said, translating the term from human history. Another war crime according to your own rules. Like I said, Alan replied, sometimes we decide the rules don't apply anymore. Zultar stepped back. You will be taken to our main ship for further questioning. Perhaps your mind contains information that will help us understand your species better. Alan watched them leave. The invisible field still held him in place, but his mind was racing. The fact that humans had developed a biological weapon that affected Zarkonian technology was huge news. It meant the scientists were making progress faster than expected. He wasn't sure if he would survive the mind scanning the aliens planned. From reports of previous captives, the process was often fatal. But he had accomplished his mission. He had kept the aliens focused on him and his team, while others worked on finding the Zarkonians' weaknesses. Most importantly, he had made them question their assumptions about humans. The aliens had arrived confident in their superiority. Now, they were confused, uncertain. They didn't understand why humans fought the way they did, why they refused to surrender despite overwhelming odds. That confusion might be enough to buy Earth the time it needed. Alan closed his eyes, conserving his strength for whatever came next. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the aliens arrived, he felt something he hadn't expected to feel again. Hope. 6 months passed since Alan's capture. The Zarkonian fleet above Earth had shrunk by 2/3, not through direct combat. Human weapons still couldn't penetrate their shields, but through 1,000 small disasters. Their atmospheric processors, which they used to adjust Earth's air to better suit them, were contaminated with engineered bacteria that produced corrosive compounds. Navigation systems failed, sending ships crashing into each other. Supply lines broke down. Human insurgents attacked constantly, willing to die by the hundreds for the chance to kill even one alien. In the Zarkonian flagship high above what used to be Chicago, Supreme General Zoltar reviewed the latest reports. His skin had turned a permanent dark gray, a sign of deep stress in his species. 3 of his 4 arms now had mechanical parts. "We lose ground every day," he said to Zendar, who stood nearby. "The humans attack, retreat, then attack again. They never stop." "They are using the knowledge gained from studying our biology," Zendar replied. "The bacteria they created specifically targets our organic technology. It would have taken them centuries to develop such weapons without samples. But we gave them those samples when we established ground bases," Zoltar realized. "We provided the very tools they needed to fight us." A Zarkonian officer entered the room, his movements jerky with urgency. "Supreme General, our sensors detect an energy buildup in Sector 4. The humans may have developed a new weapon." "Impossible," Zoltar said, but he didn't sound convinced. "Their technological level is too primitive." "They adapt quickly," Zendar reminded him. "They learn from every encounter." Zoltar moved to the viewing platform that looked out over the city below. Chicago had been chosen as the aliens' main headquarters on Earth. Once a bustling human city, it was now partially transformed with Zarkonian architecture. Crystal towers rose among the concrete and steel buildings. "The conquest that should have taken weeks has stretched into years," he said, more to himself than to the others, with no end in sight. "They should have surrendered," he added, turning back to Zendar. "Any rational species would have calculated the odds and submitted." "They did calculate the odds," came a voice from the doorway. "They just reached a different conclusion than you expected." All 3 aliens turned, weapons ready. Alan Reynolds stood there, very much alive. His face had new scars, and he wore a mix of human and adapted Zarkonian armor. Behind him stood Samantha Kelly and 4 other humans, all wearing similar gear. "How?" Zoltar demanded, his voice mixing shock and anger. "You were sent to the primary research vessel. It was destroyed 3 months ago." "I escaped before that," Alan said, walking forward calmly. "Your mind-scanning techniques don't work well on humans. Our brains are too messy, too emotional." The Zarkonian guards who should have been outside the door were nowhere to be seen. Somehow these humans had infiltrated the most secure location on Earth. "Your security has too many patterns," Samantha explained, seeing Zoltar's compound eyes, shifting to the doorway. "We studied them, found the gaps." Zendar moved to one of the communication panels but stopped when one of the humans aimed a strange device at him. "That won't work," the human said. "We've temporarily disabled your communications." Zoltar's Mechanical arms whirred as he prepared for combat. You are 6 humans in the heart of our stronghold. What did you hope to accomplish? We've come to negotiate your surrender, Samantha said simply. The aliens stared at the humans in disbelief. Surrender? Zoltar echoed. We still have ships that could destroy every major city on your planet. Yes, Alan acknowledged. And we've evacuated those cities. Your move. Impossible, Zendar said. You could not evacuate billions of humans in secret. We didn't do it in secret, Samantha replied. We did it while you were busy fighting our decoys and dealing with your ships falling apart. Alan stepped closer to Zoltar. Your fleet is down to 1/3 of its original size. Your ground forces are under constant attack. Your organic technology is being eaten away by our engineered bacteria. How much longer do you think you can last? Zoltar's skin rippled with dark patterns. We can still cause immense damage. So can we, Alan countered. But neither of us wants that. It's not efficient. The use of the Zarkonian concept seemed to affect Zoltar. His posture changed subtly. What terms do you propose? He asked finally. Samantha took out a small device and activated it. A hologram appeared between them, showing a document. You leave Earth and never return, she said. You acknowledge our system as sovereign territory. In exchange, we share with you the cure for the bacteria affecting your ships, and we establish trade relations for the resources you need, obtained without conquest. And if we refuse? Zendar asked. Alan smiled grimly. Then we continue doing what humans do best, fighting against impossible odds, creating new weapons from whatever we can find, refusing to surrender no matter how many of us die. One of the humans behind Alan spoke up. Our scientists have started work on adapting your shield technology. It's only a matter of time before we can use it ourselves. We've also learned how your faster-than-light drives work, Samantha added. Soon, we'll be able to follow you wherever you go. Zoltar looked at each human in turn, his compound eyes reflecting their images. You would pursue us? Even if we left your world in peace? No, Alan said firmly. That's not who we want to be. We're offering you a way out that benefits us both, but if forced to choose between extinction and becoming conquerors ourselves, well, history suggests which path humans would take. A tense silence filled the room. Finally, Zoltar approached the hologram and studied it. I must consult with the Imperium Council, he said, but I will recommend acceptance of these terms. The cost of continuing this conflict is illogical. 1 week later, the Zarkonian fleet began departing Earth's orbit. The massive ships rose higher and higher until they were just points of light in the sky. Then, in flashes of energy, they disappeared into faster-than-light travel. Only one smaller vessel remained. On its landing platform stood Zendar, now appointed as ambassador to Earth. He watched as Alan and Samantha approached. You will join the galactic community now, Zendar said. Other species will want to meet you. Some will fear you. We'll try to be good neighbors, Samantha assured him. We never wanted war. Yet you excel at it, Zendar observed. A contradiction that makes your species unique. Alan looked up at the sky where the fleet had been. We'll be watching, you know, making sure the Imperium keeps its word. They will, Zendar said. Your victory has been educational for us. The Supreme General has added a special warning to the stellar charts of the Imperium. What does it say? Samantha asked. Zendar's skin shifted to a lighter blue, a sign of respect in his species. It says, approach with extreme caution. The beings on the third planet evolved not through cooperation, but through conflict. They have a concept called war crimes that they created because without such restrictions, they feared their own extinction at their own hands. They are not physically imposing, but their minds are weapons more terrible than any in our arsenal. They call themselves human. As Zendar boarded his ship, Alan and Samantha watched in silence. The vessel rose smoothly, joining the stars above. Earth was alone again, but not for long. Humanity now had access to new technologies, new horizons. What do you think will happen when we go out there? Samantha asked, still looking at the sky. We'll make friends, Alan said. We'll make enemies, we'll make mistakes, and we'll learn from them, Samantha added. Alan nodded. That's what humans do best. They turned and walked back toward the city, where the work of rebuilding had already begun. Behind them, Zendar's ship vanished in a flash of light, carrying its warning to the stars.